So Famida, we're going to turn it over to you, and hopefully there's been plenty of questions in the live chat. If not, we'll look at some of the other questions from the community. And bear in mind that because we've got so many new investors that will be experiencing Bank to the Future the first time, we'll try and get through some of the newer questions that some of our more experienced investors may have heard in previous episodes of Bank to the Future Live. So over to you, Famida. What have we got?
Right, well, the live chat has been lively. We've actually had more viewers this time than we've had before, which is amazing. 160 people joined us today. Yeah, it's great. So we do have a lot of newbie questions though, and I think it will be really beneficial if we do go through these newbie questions, because a lot of newbies have joined the live chat as well here today. So let's get into that, if that's okay with you, Simon.
Yep, let's take them. I'll get through as many as I can, and we'll end on the hour.
Cool. So what does a certified or an accredited investor mean?
Okay, so we as a securities business have to comply with international securities laws. And international securities laws, we've been doing this since 2010. We were one of the first companies lobbying. Actually, when we originally started, I was based in the UK. I don't live in the UK anymore. But when we originally started, we were lobbying the regulators in order to open up investment. And some of that foundational work actually ended up leading to the US regulators changing their policy on securities laws and the Jobs Act. And that laid the foundation for many of the early tokens. So we were investors in the early ones like MadeSafe, Mastercoin, and Ethereum. And that work actually led to, later in 2017, the ICO boom, and now securities tokens. And so the idea is that many of you new to crypto might not, it depends which stage you got in. I spoke at the first Bitcoin conference in 2011 and seen these lots of different cycles, and people join at different stages. But the idea is that every country has their own securities laws. And securities laws are designed to try and protect consumers how the regulatory body sees fit, and they implement different policies and procedures that securities businesses have to comply to. And as a securities business, we have to comply with international securities laws as a global platform. And we allow people to onboard unique to the jurisdiction that they reside in. And unfortunately, there's no unified process for global securities laws. And so a platform like Bank to the Future has been working for years and years and years through different sister companies, whether it be our US broker-dealer, or whether it be different entities, or it be our parent company, or our Cayman Island registered securities business with SEMA. We have to do different things in order to comply. And so what we've done is we've tried to take out so that when you register, it only allows the people that the regulator say are allowed to invest in securities. In the case of the US, they have something called an accredited investor. And this only applies to, through our platform, because we are not a US company and we partner with a US broker-dealer, only US investors will onboard via that US broker-dealer, and those US investors will have to comply with US securities laws, as do we. And so this concept of an accredited investor is who the SEC says is allowed to invest in such high risk, high return opportunities. And I don't want to get too geeky into it because you don't really probably care. But there's different types of deals. For example, Kraken is what's called a 506c deal, which means that we're allowed to tell as many people about it, but only accredited investors are allowed to invest. So before they can actually invest, they have to complete a verification process, which follows anti-money laundering laws so that we know who you are. And then there's things like source of funds, source of wealth. But then there's accreditation certification process. That means that you certify and give evidence that you are who you say you are. You can do that in 3 ways. Either you can prove that you have an income of $200,000 or a joint income of $300,000 with your spouse, or you can prove that you own $1 million in assets through your net asset qualification. Or you can upload a third-party authentication letter where a broker-dealer, a financial professional, a lawyer, or an accountant can actually certify that you are an accredited investor. And we give you a template in certification of all the ways that you can qualify, and then you upload that. And once you've done that certification, you're then able to invest in deals that are open to the US that go via our broker-dealer. And so what we've designed is a simple process, as simple as it can be in compliance with securities laws, for you to verify yourself and certify yourself if you are a US resident to invest in different pitches that are set up in different ways when they're open to US investors. And that's what the verification and certification process is. Now, people get confused because if a US company then comes along and says you have to be an accredited investor, well, that's only if you reside in the US. If you reside in a different jurisdiction, then there are certain requirements, and every country has their own nuances. But we present to you, based upon when you register, the process that we believe to be in compliance with your local securities laws. And accredited investor is only a concept for if you reside in the US. Many people, what they do is they put everybody through a US process. But we try and do a unique process so we can open up to as many as can compliantly invest. So that's a very long question. And the answer is, please try and ignore what other people are doing because they may live in a different jurisdiction. And so their requirement may not apply to you. And just walk through the BnkToTheFuture.com platform, and we won't actually let you invest until you actually either certify or self-certify your investor status. And there's different requirements in different countries. And everybody needs to pass the KYC. We need to know who you are. You need to upload, to be safe, a passport. There's different documents you can upload, or a proof of address that's 3 months recent. And there's different requirements depending on your jurisdiction. But you don't need to know all the complication. All you need to do is follow the process in front of you, and we won't let you do anything unless you actually are a qualified investor. And if you got through that process, then you've agreed that you are and has met the local requirements based upon our understanding of your local securities laws. So in a nutshell, we try and open up to as many people as international regulators allow us to, and we take care of the compliance, and you just need to focus on your process rather than listening to somebody else that might have a different process based upon their jurisdiction.
Right, I think you've pretty much covered everything, all the questions asked, but we'll go through them anyways. So this one in particular, it's already been covered in terms of what is a certified or an accredited investor, and therefore are you allowed to invest? So this question goes, I don't earn as much as is required to be an investor, but can I still invest $1,000 in Kraken? So somebody has savings and they just want to invest. They're not an actual investor per se.
So again, I'll have to deviate because I don't know your country of residence. But depending on your country of residence, we present for you the qualification criteria. Income is one of them. Net assets is another. But different countries also have what's called a sophistication test, where if you can demonstrate that you meet certain requirements, you understand investing, you pass our quiz, then you might also qualify to invest. Unfortunately, without actually knowing your jurisdiction and your particular situation, I can't actually answer that question, but our platform will answer it for you. Once you are an investor, the minimum investment on the platform, it won't let you invest less it won't let you invest less than you are allowed to on the platform. It tends to be that the minimum investment requirement is $1,000, but certain categories would only let you invest $100,000, for example. So unfortunately, I can't give you a blanket answer, but if it allows you to invest $1,000, then it means you do qualify, because based upon what you've told us about yourself and the documents you provided. So we won't let you do things that you're not allowed to do. That is the goal of the platform, unless there's an additional law or something, and we have our compliance team will flag that up in the closing.
Yeah, or unless there is a glitch or some sort of a technical bug that allowed somebody to invest without certifying or without actually selecting a type of investor status. So somebody in the live chat has already just said, I didn't self-certify, but was allowed to invest. So
Not possible.
yeah.
So the pitch will, now you may have self-certified when you originally signed up, so it doesn't ask you to do it every single time, but it's enforced by code in our platform that you would have to self-certify before you can see an investor page, before you can actually do that. Don't get that confused with verification. Verification is us knowing that you are, and you have to do that before it closes. But we won't let you transact with at least self-certifying, and then there may be additional requirements depending on where you reside. But if that has actually happened, then please give some screenshots to our support team. But in all the years that we've been running, that has not happened once without you going through the self-certification. But do remember, you might have signed up maybe a while ago, not remember that you self-certified, because it won't require you to do it again unless you meet the requirement where we have to re-self-certify you over a certain period, which depends on your jurisdiction. So if you invested, then you did go through the self-certification process.
I think it would be worth mentioning what types of investor statuses there are available. So there's 3 types, right? And what do they each stand for?
There's actually about 9 types. So it's, but the way to get the answer is to register on the platform, and we won't let you do it. So you could be a verified, non-verified, accredited via income, via net assets, or via third-party authentication letter. You could be a sophisticated investor, which is a definition that implies to certain jurisdictions. So the reason I don't necessarily want to go through them all is because it's very boring for you to learn about different certification statuses that don't apply to you. All you need to focus on is what the screen tells you and the different statuses there. But the platform won't let you do anything unless you meet the requirements.
Right. Okay. So let's move on to the next official question here. I have already invested, but my income is not as much as what's required to be a qualified investor. Can I take my investment back?
If you have agreed to something that is not actually you, then if you, for example, said that you meet the income requirement and then you can't provide the evidence or additional documentation, if required in your jurisdiction, then we won't take you on as an investor. And if you now are disclosing to us that you do not meet the requirement that you told us you met, then you would need to tell our support, and then we would need to rectify that situation based upon your individual situation and what you told us. But remember, the income requirement is only one requirement. You might have used a sophistication requirement instead, or you might have used a net asset requirement. You don't have to meet all of them. You just have to meet one of those. And if you're now telling us that when you registered, you told us that you meet that, but then you don't, then just please let our support team know, and our support team will try and rectify that.
Okie dokie. What is the lock-in period for Kraken, and how long is it for, and what do we do if we want to liquidate early?
So you can't liquidate early. This is a long-term, high-risk, high-return investment, but we do provide various options that are not guaranteed, and we can't guarantee liquidity. So you only invest in Kraken if you want to be a shareholder for the long term. And remember, the company might go bust in the future and be worth nothing, in which case you would lose all your capital. We would put you through a quiz before investing to make sure you understand those rules around it and suitability. But the way to liquidate is either Kraken goes public in the future, and if it doesn't go public, then there would have to be a liquidity event, like an acquisition where another company purchases it, or a management buyout where the board actually ends up buying it, but none of those are guaranteed, so there may be no exit. The other additional option we have is over-the-counter secondary market where you can place buy and sell orders with other qualifying investors on Bnk To The Future, and depending on your country, there'll be a different lock-in period. The minimum lock-in period, for example, in the US is 1 year. In most other jurisdictions, it might be 3 months. until you can place an OTC order, and then we can't guarantee liquidity. This is really not, a flip. It's not a public company. This is long-term, high-risk, high-return equity investing, and most people are investing for the longer term and building a diversified portfolio and trying to benefit from the growth of a general diversified portfolio, of believing that the future of finance and the fintech industry is going to disrupt traditional finance and grow to a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And then hopefully you pick some of the companies that are going to be having the valuation increases along the way, is the idea. Now, you might also just be investing in Kraken for evangelistic reasons, because you want to be a part of a company that's involved in something you're excited about. But in terms of returns, it is that you're looking for share price increases if any of those events happen. And also worth noting, most people don't invest in private equity for dividends. Normally you'd invest in another asset class for income. But if Kraken ever did pay dividends, then we would pass those on and we would distribute them to your account on Bnk To The Future. And we charge a 5% carry for that, which means that you would receive, we would charge 5% of any distribution. And then you can withdraw them from your BnkToTheFuture.com account using either a bank wire through our banking partner, or you could use a cryptocurrency like Tether if it's paid in dollars, or maybe it's paid in Bitcoin and you could withdraw Bitcoin. We pay on the same currency that is received from those dividends.
Alrighty, let's move on to the next question. When I invest $1,000, it shows 0.0% equity in the company. What does that mean?
That's probably us displaying with not enough decimal places. So it would be great to understand where that is displayed. And if you report that to us, then we'll make sure that the decimal places are correct. If it's not, head over to the portfolio section of your account, and it will display the actual percentage of the underlying company that you owned, as well as the percentage of the SPV. So you will own a percentage of the company that holds Kraken shares, or a beneficial interest in the percentage of the entire company, based upon the number of shares that Kraken discloses to us that can change in the future. So yeah, it's not 0%. It's probably, we need to display to 4 decimal places, because Kraken is a higher valuation as they're a later stage.
Yeah, I think it actually is displayed like that, 0.0000 something 0.1.
Okay, so that's one. Okay, well, if it is displayed somewhere else as 0.0, then we'll please do let us know, and we'll try and get that fixed and display more decimal places. But I know in other places it is displayed correctly, but maybe they found a place where we haven't noticed.
Okay, so I have a question here about the raising funds. So earlier Kraken was raising $10.2 million, and now they are raising $15.4 million. Does that mean my equity will be diluted?
Great question. So the way that BnkToTheFuture.com works is we allow for overfunding. What overfunding means is that you have a minimum funding goal. The minimum funding goal means they have to raise that amount in order for the transaction to complete. Kraken beat the minimum funding goal very quickly. It then goes to a total funding goal, and the total funding goal is the amount they wanted to raise. Now, remember, the Kraken round is part of a larger round. So they're taking on direct investors, as part of a larger round. And because it was so successful, they allowed for what we call overfunding. Overfunding is where they allocate more equity to our special company. And that means that that Kraken are selling more equity. Your equity is not being diluted if you're invested in that round. So the goal went from 10 million to 15 million because they gave another 5 million to our SPV, because they wanted to invite more and more people because it was so successful. And so the amount of equity on offer increased to complete the valuation, so that the valuation is the same. You're not being diluted. If we ever were to change terms like that and dilute you, then we would give you the option of a refund before actually doing that, because we don't increase the valuation. If you've already invested, they're just giving our SPV, our special company, the ability to subscribe to more of the equity as part of a greater round. So in effect, it doesn't affect you in any way other than that there are more shares in the SPV and the valuation's the same.
All right, we have 5 more minutes on the clock. Are you prepared to go a little bit over, or do you want to carry on answering these questions?
Sure, let's carry on. We can do another 15 if we want, if there's good questions that we need to do.
All right. How does BF make sure that the company is valued at the right price for its investors?
We don't. What we do is what we tend to do, and there might be a few exceptions to this, is we look for Kraken for example, in the case of Kraken, they would set their valuation and they would put it out to the market, and they would try and find a professional investor or a VC, and the VC and professional investor would then negotiate a valuation. And if they transact at that valuation, that then sets the valuation. Then we would co-invest on the same terms. Now, sometimes we lead around, in which case we would be negotiating a valuation. And then what we do is we would just then present it, and investors can then make their own individual decision about whether they think there's return opportunity, or whether the valuation is lower or higher, or whether they think there's going to be higher valuation opportunities in the future. So it's up to the individual investor to agree or disagree with the valuation. And we tend to have 2 types of companies. We have very early stage companies. So Kraken was originally a company where, people thought that maybe a 20 million valuation was crazy at the time. But now look where they've grown. And those are our earlier stage companies. Those are much higher risk and more likely to fail. The later stage companies, they are lower risk, still high risk, but the valuations are higher. And then you have to make a judgment about whether you think that there is a valuation increase potential. And we provide several tools. We provide all the information on the investor page, and we provide the investor discussion forum where you can ask questions. And if you don't agree with the valuations, then it's simply don't invest, is the way that it actually works. But we will try and get the best valuation we can possibly get. And then we will present that valuation, and then the investors have the choice. Or it also depends on the lead investor setting the valuation as well. So it has to be set by the market, really. The company sets it, and then you can decide whether to agree or disagree by investing or not investing.
Okay, I think we're done with most of the newbie questions. We have a lot of questions in the live chat.
Okay, let's try and get through some.
Where to begin? Okay, so is Bnk To The Future planning to be listed on, sorry, not Bnk To The Future, is BFT planning to be listed on Challenge or Shapeshift?
I think they mean Changely or Shapeshift.
Oh, sorry, yes, Changely, sorry.
Yep. Well, we don't control the token. The Bnk To The Future token is an ERC20 token. It's open source code, and any exchange is free to do with the Bnk To The Future token as they please. We don't actually control that process. So it's integrated, for example, with several exchanges who have all made the decision to list the Bnk To The Future token. It's integrated with coin payments, so they have millions and millions transacted through their merchant processing, and anyone can decide to accept Bnk To The Future tokens. Shapeshift is one of our portfolio companies. They have a criteria, and they hopefully will get to integrating Bnk To The Future token. I think they would look for a minimum liquidity requirement in order to meet some of those shifting orders, and Changely the same as well. But yeah, so we don't actually control that process. That is up to the exchanges to do their custom integrations should they choose to work with Bank to the Future. If they would like additional information, then we can try and support them with the information they need. And we think that Bank to the Future token, once we come out of beta in the secondary market, just from our beta stats, we think a lot more people are going to be using the Bank to the Future token in order to get their 50% discounted trading fees. And our goal at the Bank to the Future token is to, when we utilize the Bank to the Future token, is to kind of like Binance created BNB for the cryptocurrency industry for their ecosystem. We're looking to do similar things for the securities token and securities ecosystem. And we've got lots plans in the future that we want to launch centered around that. But yes, to answer your question, we could try and influence it, but it's an open source project. And if Change or Shapeshift want to integrate that, they can do that. We don't control the code.
You just mentioned the ecosystem. There's a question here. As the main token of Bank to the Future's ecosystem, where should BFT be placed on the market cap ranking?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but at the moment, the Bank to the Future token is on CoinMarketCap, and it is a top 200 token at the moment. Our goal, if we can utilize the Bank to the Future token as part of the ecosystem, we think it should be a top 100 token. That's what we'd love to achieve. But our job is just to make the Bank to the Future token more and more useful in more and more parts of our ecosystem, and also other people can start to use the Bank to the Future token in parts of their ecosystem, just like coin payments and other integrations. But the Bank to the Future token, we are very grateful to be a token holder, and we want to integrate it in all the different processes of our ecosystem, whether that be the BF wallet for security tokens, or whether that be our future plans with security token exchange, or whether that be our secondary market or our primary offerings, or some of our other projects like Bank to the Future ID, and various other parts of our ecosystem that we're building out with our different teams. And we've got lots of announcements planned for what we're going to be doing with that in the future.
Okay. We can see that Kraken has mentioned about Bank to the Future. Is there a possibility that BF token will be listed on the Kraken exchange?
Kraken haven't confirmed with us at this stage, or they have neither confirmed nor denied whether they'll be listing the Bank to the Future token. That would be up to Kraken's policy, and we would not disclose any kind of insider information if something like that did actually happen. I think Kraken has a very strict policy around how they would actually disclose new token listings, and that's not us. It's them.
All right, just bear with me. I'm just sifting through these questions because some of them are duplicated questions worded differently. Do you think Kraken will reach the secondary market?
I'm very reluctant to guarantee that at this stage, and I also have to be careful what I say. But Kraken is the exact type of company that we would look to have listed for our qualifying investors to place buy and sell orders with each other via the over-the-counter trading market on BnkToTheFuture.com. I know that sounds like a political answer, but we have to be very careful with how we describe these things and how we're actually presenting this information, because it is still a long-term, high-risk, high-return investment. The goal is not for people to flip these things, to start treating them as cryptocurrencies. And this is a longer-term, high-risk, high-return investment that may not have liquidity. But our goal is to provide, opportunities, and Kraken is the exact type of company that we would look to have on our OTC order book and the secondary market on Bank to the Future.
All right, what is coming? What is coming for us after this Kraken investment for us investors?
So maybe you missed the beginning. I went through upcoming pitches, but let me just pull up my show notes so I can see that for you. Upcoming deals we've got are the ones we can announce anyway. Edge, which is a wallet token market involved in the security token and token ecosystem. For premium members, blockchain.com is our next secondary market listing that we're looking to do, and CoinFirm as well. And the way to find out about those is to be a premium member and deposit 10,000 Bank to the Future tokens to your BnkToTheFuture.com account or your BF wallet. And I'm frantically trying to figure out where my screen is. There it is. Okay.
Okay. Since you just touched on they need to have 10,000 BF tokens in their account or on their BF wallet, where do they get their BF tokens from?
So the Bank to the Future tokens, if you go to coinmarketcap.com and put in BFT in the search bar, you'll find the Bank to the Future token. The ticker symbol is BFT. And they list the different exchanges that allow people to buy and sell Bank to the Future tokens. Off memory, you've got Bitfinex, ETHFinex, Bittrex, Huobi, Gate.io, DragonX, and some various other exchanges. Remember, these are third-party exchanges. You have to do your own research. It's not an endorsement from us to use any of those exchanges, but those are the different exchanges which allow you to buy and sell Bank to the Future tokens, as far as we can tell. And I think there's Huobi Korea as well, and and Upbit as well. So it's listed on several cryptocurrency exchanges.
All right, I am thinking that maybe we should just end on this last question from the live chat. Are you concerned about regulations, or more specifically, the lack of regulations in the industry?
We're very concerned about regulations, and we spend all of our time ever since we started in 2010 dealing with regulations and compliance, and it's integral to all we do. I think there's two parts to that question. The first part is Bank to the Future, our business, and at Bank to the Future, the rules are pretty clear. Securities laws has been around for an awful long time. They're being updated, they're being upgraded. A lot of work we've done to try and get those updated and upgraded over the years. And so the rules are pretty clear around securities laws. What is very murky and very challenging is certain jurisdictions with certain crypto products. And yes, we have been the victim for some of our deals that we've invested in being the wrong side of regulations. For example, Uno Coin, they were the largest exchange in India. The Indian environment, regulatory environment, completely changed around cryptocurrencies, and that led to a very unfavorable outcome so far for Uno Coin, as they had to sit there and wait for regulators rather than trading. And so these situations, it is one of the risks when investing in this industry, but it also is what creates arbitrage opportunities for different exchanges and different jurisdictions, different opportunities. But yeah, the regulations is a major part of our industry, and in some jurisdictions it creates an amazing opportunity. I just come back from Malta, and Malta are getting real crystal clear on what tokens are, what securities are, what distributed ledger technology is, what blockchains are, and they're building custom opportunities around that because they see the growth opportunity and jobs that are being created from this industry as a result, whereas other jurisdictions might be a bit more murky and less clear. I'm sorry if you are born in the US, because it's particularly challenging around token sales and different definitions. And unfortunately, the rest of the world doesn't want to take risks and allow American investors or purchasers in certain deals. But our job is to try and navigate that environment and understand that the underlying companies do have regulatory risks. But our job is to try and comply and make that a simple user experience for you so that you can onboard in compliance with your local jurisdiction. So there's kind of two parts to that question. But to answer your question simply, yes, it's a big concern. We invest significant resources in that, and anyone in our industry needs to be looking at those things. So was that the last question from you?
Well, I mean, there are loads of questions in the chat, but it is kind of all over the place. We do have Irvin and Aman managing the live chat whilst I've been asking you the questions. But yeah, I think that is the majority of the questions that we've had over the week, and in Telegram and in various other platforms.
Okay, what we need to try and remember to do, and the team, if you're listening, we need to make sure that we've got all the links below this video to our Telegram group, our Twitter, and various other channels in which you can engage. Yeah, we need to make sure that everyone can do that so that they can communicate with us in the medium that they prefer most. We do want to give some final things. Do bear with us at the moment. We are under extreme volume in support tickets, so there's a slight delay on support. We will get round to them. I'm sorry for any delays, but we're trying to get through those at the moment, and we're putting additional resources to get through those. We're getting through as many certification and verification processes. We're also investing in great systems to improve that. As I said, we have a higher bar in terms of regulatory requirement than a cryptocurrency exchange, but we're really excited about the Bank to the Future identity and the different solutions to make this experience a lot better, a lot faster, and a lot more real time. So do reach out. We have our Telegram channel where we try and engage as much as we can. Hashtag BF Live on Twitter, and we're here each and every week. So please do use the comments. We'll try and pick it up next week. Use the opportunity on the live chat. And last week was the first time we missed it due to technical reasons. But please subscribe to this channel. Please, that will like this channel, share this channel. That really helps us as well reach more of the community. And hit that bell notification so that YouTube can send you an email notification when we go live. Also remember that we have the investor zone and the discussion forums on each pitch. So utilize those opportunities to get your questions answered. And yeah, we thank you for being a part of it. And I think that's going to do it. Thank you to Famida and the rest of the team for moderating and getting through some of those questions. Thanks to the community for answering, bringing up great questions for us to cover and joining us as a new person. Remember also, if you want to binge and you really want to build a portfolio, go through all the previous episodes of Bank to the Future Live. We've got on our FAQ, our support page, I think we've got links to all of those. Or you can just go through YouTube on the videos tab and see all the different videos, previous episodes. We've been through a lot of this stuff, or just wait till next week and we'll answer your question if you join our community. So that's going to do it for another episode of, episode 15 of Bank to the Future Live, and we'll see you next week, same time for episode 16. Thank you.